studios as we welcome in television's Deuce Mason, Morgan Reagan, Deuce Mo podcast.
We got
guys.
We got Dante's bag and sent it over to.
Yeah.
Little different vibe from Kenny this week. I'll be honest, man. I mean, he was strutting around last week on the show like it was Vince McMahon after the big win at Lambeau, and like it's weird. I don't know. Like something happened. Like yes, I know a 17-7 lead.
Yes,
Rams with no timeouts. Two of the worst challenges ever. And your team just gagged it away again.
Yeah, I should absolutely strut around after the 49ers. Well, people say that all the time. You got different energy this week. Yeah, no blank. My team lost. Absolutely, it was different energy. What do you expect me to do? What do you expect me to sit around? Oh, well, let me tell you. No, they lost. Yeah, different energy.
You're strutting. I felt like you were already getting ready for the Super Bowl. You were making plans.
I thought they were going to make the play. I thought they were going to make the Super Bowl. Wow. Absolutely. Thought they were gonna make the Super Bowl. They should have. They were in a position to close that game out. Didn't do it. They had a great season though. I really enjoyed the season. I was telling the guys earlier. I think they're. I don't want to say ahead of schedule because they made the Super Bowl in 2019, but I didn't feel like this year was the year. Like if they have the same outcome next year, I'll be a little more upset because I think next year is the year. Like I think it's the next 2 years. That's the time to strike.
Two things. NFL is so different, right? Where it's just like, you don't know who's going to be up or down. But what is consistent, I feel like 49ers, 30 years, it's like, oh yeah, high. And then it's like a low. And then it's like right here. And then it's high again. So that's why even my expectation, you said this was a fun year. I didn't have fun. I didn't have fun with all the expectations going into the season. Like, oh, they're going to be great. And then it wasn't great. But then it was like they're limping in. That is how I felt toward the end of this. And that's why I think my faith in this team and Jimmy Garoppolo actually making the Super Bowl was just like, yeah, I don't think it will happen. If it does, it will be lucky.
Well, Mo, I mean, nobody had any high expectations for the 49ers. I was the only one.
No, yes, they did before the season. Everyone did. Are you kidding me? I remember talking to Matt Barrows, and he was like, everyone's talking about how this team could be like that major defensive team that we've
Jimmy's, they're all camp.
Yeah, and it's just like everyone's in the right mind space. And that wasn't only Matt Barrows. That was a lot of people.
Much like mine and Damien's, our timelines must be different as well. Okay, because I heard it was the Rams division to win. The Cardinals, you got to respect it. They had people saying the Niners were going to finish last in that division. I disagreed, obviously. I thought it was a little hyperbole. But I didn't think nobody had them going to the Super Bowl. Nobody. They had them maybe making the playoffs. Maybe you could see somebody that put them winning the division. But nobody had them going to the Super Bowl.
Some excited people.
Next year, I think that's going to be different, though. Next year, I think there will be a Super Bowl pick for some people.
With Trey Lance leading the way?
Absolutely. I think they're going to be stacked.
Ooh.
Next year, the 2 years, this is the time because you have Debo and Kittle about as good as they're going to be. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I think with the way they play football, the decline might start to happen in 2 years from now.
Yeah.
Now is the time. Now is the time.
Speaking of, and you'll hear from Jimmy Garoppolo and inevitably Kenny crying when we run that sound here in just a little bit. Speaking of disappointing, as we transition here, how would you two describe De'Aaron Fox's season?
Yeah. Beyond disappointing. I mean, I don't know. I mean, like what's happening right now. We haven't seen him in almost 2 weeks now, and it's a sore left ankle, and you don't know, like the details just aren't there as to like, okay, is it more serious? Is there just rest happening? And just like, I mean, he doesn't seem like he's had that same type of fire most of the year.
Yeah, I wasn't going to use the word disappointing, but then I'm like, but that's really what it is, if you want to use inconsistent, because when he has those moments or those games where you're like, this is what we were talking about, it's strange that it just has not been on a consistent basis. And yeah, it's frustrating because I'll tell you right now, after last season, I thought he was going to be an all-star going into this season. It was just the way that his season was going, his shooting was going, everything was going in the right direction. And then I don't know what
I also
happened.
don't think they did him any favors with the roster construction. Like, Fox needs some shooting around him.
Yes, open up the paint.
They don't
other
have
threats.
shooting. And we knew that before the season, though. Like, we thought, okay, Halliburton can shoot it, Buddy, but like when Fox does, they had more spacing around and giving him some room to operate. And look, it's not just his fault that's disappointing this year, but the 3-point numbers are the lowest they've ever been for him. Things like 25%. Yeah. It's just not good. And I think the biggest thing is just maybe the joy is gone. And I don't know how much does that have to do with just the years and years and years of losing he's experienced now.
Yeah, get over that, Fox. Like you got something to do, man. Like you gotta. Nah, I know. I'm not saying you're using that as an excuse. I've heard other people talking about that. Like, then leave. I'm not telling him to leave, but if you're like, well, we're losing, I can't get over it, then move on, because then nothing's gonna change here with you continuing to sulk. And I'm not saying that's what he's doing, but if that's what people want to say about that, you're not gonna change the losing by sulking and not playing well. So. It sucks. Yeah, I get it, but you got to strap up and let's go to work. Let's try and change things around.
And I think the other thing too, Kenny, is that we, for sure, in this year, it was exposed that De'Aaron Fox will not be a number one guy in this league. And that's okay. That's not even a knock on him. Not everyone's meant to be a number one guy. You look at even what the Sixers were doing with Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons was not the number one guy. He couldn't be if he can't even shoot the damn ball, So it's it's no knock on De'Aaron Fox, but no matter where he lands, if it doesn't remain here in Sacramento, he's just not a number one guy. And I think Sacramento Kings fans and even the organization, the expectations of what he could be was to be that number one guy. A number one guy is a dog, is someone that's going to have a different body language and personality through those dark times. But hey, we're also not there behind the scenes. We don't know what's happening. And I'm not justifying anything. I'm just saying, like, it's gotta be hell right now.
Yeah.
I push back on the losing thing, because he's been like this since the beginning of the season, and that's what, like, if inconsistent, disappointing, the word is confusing to me. Like, it's one thing to have a down year, like, I understand that he was playing at a really high level last year. It just feels like he is disinterested. He's removed. Like, he just doesn't feel like the same De'Aaron Fox that the fan base fell in love with. And I don't know if that's, I don't know. Maybe that's on the fan base. Maybe that's on De'Aaron. He feels like a totally different, he feels like a different player or a different person.
Yeah. And it's hard to pinpoint, like, okay, we don't know if there's something happening in his life. Who the hell knows? Like, I say that because, that clip that came out last week where Taylor Rooks sat down with DeMar DeRozan, he's like, oh yeah, a few years ago, I was flying back on game days to see my father in Southern California who was having health issues. No one knew it at the time. I don't know. So that we're left here to speculate, like, where was this guy who, like, put out that hype video a couple of seasons ago before the season talking about how he's going to change things in Sacramento, the guy who was like smiling on the court, dunking all the time, having a good time. And it doesn't seem like he has that same type of vibe anymore. And so it's hard to pinpoint, like, why or when it changed, but it just hasn't looked the same. And it's frustrating because I still think he's a good player. I mean, he's 24 years old. My biggest fear is that they move him and he goes somewhere and it's like, oh, wow, cool. He can be a legit player. And he's finally reached all-star level being somewhere else. And that's what I worry about. But there's just something that seems like it's missing right now, for sure.
Well, one thing that's definitely missing is De'Aaron Fox, but we'll get to that in a minute.
One of the things that you just said, Deuce, is something that's said a lot with the Kings Twitter. This is kind of random, but like Kings Twitter, like, oh yeah, he's just gonna leave and be a superstar somewhere else. Marvin Bagley, he's gonna leave and be a superstar somewhere else. That don't even happen. Like, who was the person that left here and just took off like that. Isaiah Thomas is probably one.
Yeah, that's
Is
the
there
big
anybody
one,
else?
though. That guy
But
turned
We all
into
knew
like,
that was dumb, but like
Yeah.
no one, like everyone knew in the moment, this is really dumb. They're letting him leave. This is stupid.
Right.
That wasn't like a
Well,
surprise, though. I mean, maybe to the level in which he
Seth-
did it.
Seth Curry is, I mean,
yeah,
who
but
is-
he didn't turn into a star. He's
No.
a role guy.
He's
but,
really
but
good,
even,
though.
but
Good.
yeah, but a really good role guy that can open up the floor and can shoot
Sure.
the ball.
Also went to like 3 other teams after Sacramento.
100%.
You know what I mean? Like that. I hear what you're saying, Duke Kenny. In the Fox example, I still think Fox can be a guy for sure.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm not saying he's a superstar, but he's shown enough in this league that I don't look at him and go, oh, he's never going to figure it out. I mean,
Right.
he's shown the ability to score the basketball, even with the shortcomings from the free throw line, the 3-point line. He's explosive. If he's in a right situation, he could be great. And like I said, we're going back to what we were just talking about. This Kings team has no spacing for the most part. Like, think about Terrence Davis. Like, he was missing a ton of shots earlier in the year. Davion Mitchell, Buddy has been, I mean, on this road trip. I know Fox didn't play, but he's not making anything. Like, where's the shooting on this team? There's none. And that makes life a lot more challenging for a guy like Fox.
Here's a question, you guys. Someone asked us last night on our night chat. They were like, hey, did the organization not do anything good for De'Aaron Fox by drafting Davion Mitchell, another point guard? And I was like, well, you can't blame this on that draft pick. They were trying to address other flaws, like their defense, for example, especially on-ball defense. And so I'm not mad at them for addressing a big flaw with this team, but there's so many flaws to address that you weren't going to make everything better within that draft. But I'm curious too. I go, well, if you did get more of a shooter at the draft, would that have helped De'Aaron Fox's game because he could penetrate and pass out and it would open up the paint because there'd be more of a threat along the perimeter? We just don't know because there's too many things that this team needs to make everyone's games better,
Right. No, I agree. And in those, whoever they drafted, I mean, unless maybe you talking somebody like, Duarte, but they weren't going to be in the starting lineup with Fox. They'd be coming off the bench with Davion and getting those second unit minutes and maybe playing crunch time or something like that. But it's not like he'd be the starting 2 guard or starting 3, whoever they drafted. So, yeah, you guys understand and you guys deal with it every day like we do. It's just more the frustrating more than anything. It's not like anybody is necessarily mad. Nobody, I don't think anybody's mad at Fox. It's just disappointing. We thought this would be different. We thought it'd be better, and it's not. And it's like, man, we had it wrong. We thought it'd be a little different. That's really what it is. Just disappointing.
You're listening to D'Lo and Casey on ESPN 1320 KIFM West Sacramento, KRXQ HD2 Sacramento, and Odyssey Station, and driven by Lasher's Elk Grove Dodge, joined by television's Deuce Mason and Morgan Reagan. Deuce is on TV as much as Morgan Reagan is now. Deuce Mo podcast available wherever you get podcasts from. Tyrese, you talked about the play of Buddy Hield with De'Aaron Fox out. How about the play of Tyrese Halliburton when De'Aaron Fox has been out? Does Tyrese's play make you a little more comfortable if the Sacramento Kings decide to move in a certain direction with De'Aaron Fox, meaning without De'Aaron Fox?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it would depend on what they get back in return if they moved Fox. But yeah, I mean, I like Halliburton a lot, and I think he has shown, like, dude, he can be a guy that hits big shots. That Philly game was a lot of fun. It's just him getting it going in the fourth. He had 14 points, didn't miss a shot, hitting big shots. There's things he's got to work on. I think become a better defensive player. I think that's an area. He's a guy that can get steals sometimes, but his on-ball defense has to get better. I'd like to see him beat guys off the dribble more. I mean, there was a time against the Hawks where I think he had Gallinari switched on him late, and he had trouble getting past Gallinari. He had to pass out. So these are all things he's got to work on, but I think he's got the mentality. I think the things he says after games, he's clearly frustrated by what's happening right now. And he's showing signs that he wants to help, like, be a legit playmaker for the
Yeah.
team. So I'm super encouraged by that. Now, I think, just erasing Fox from the team and you don't get anything back, obviously it's going to look like it did like last night at times, where it's just the offense kind of struggles. This offense, the road trip averaged 100 points a game. I gave up 120. That's awful.
Well, I'm not talking about leaving him in New York. I'm talking about like a potential,
I mean,
trade proposal.
I'm open-minded to it. I mean, at this point, I think you have to be open-minded to it. Like, look at where the Kings are at right now. I just don't like what does that deal look like? And I don't know if the time is right before the deadline. I don't know if that's an off-season thing.
And
I'm so to the point with this season. I'm like, trade off like some of your assets, get a first-round pick back, get a top 5 pick, and then figure out in the off-season.
yeah, because the caliber of player that you are most likely going to get back, even if De'Aaron Fox was within the mix, it's not going to be this all-star player. Now, I would have said differently if it was the Ben Simmons thing, because they have their desperation. This is a player that has been out an entire year, but now that's looking like it's not going to be the situation, right? Even if that is a smoke screen and something else happens, let's just say that's not going to be the situation. I think if you look around the league at a lot of these guys, and it's not going to be like straight up, oh, De'Aaron Fox and something else for Pascal Siakam, if that was another path that was even available. So I don't know if it's because of this year that De'Aaron Fox's value has gone down. I think really it's just his resume as a whole, never making an all-star team, always being on a losing team. And then a down year is what put his value a little bit lower. So my whole point of this is, why would you make tweaks this year? I'm not down for tweaks. I am down for picks in your back pockets in your little savings account and trying to build back through the draft again. And I have not been here in years, and I am here. I'm not even in Tank City because they're tanking by themselves without even using the word tank, So really, I'm down for the patience of like, hey, maybe do this again or do this through the draft and try and make a few tweaks where you get these other picks and you end up being like the Cleveland Cavaliers. I don't know.
Let me ask you two a question. We talked about this like last week, and we just did like a confidence meter, right? Of just what's your confidence that Fox and Halliburton can work together and like work on a major level, like be a playoff team with that being your starting backcourt. I like those guys. I like them. I don't have nothing bad to say. Like, I wish it would work. My confidence level was realistic at like a 3. There's something about it. There's a lot missing. And the things that I think they could do well together, they never seem to do so far. Maybe they grow into it. Maybe not. What's your guy scale of 1 to 10 confidence meter that those two can work together?
Well, you're missing shooting between those two.
Yeah. Maybe a 5 at this point. I mean, I think the biggest problem for me is, does De'Aaron Fox know how to play with the ball in his hand?
Mm-hmm.
And at this point, the answer is no, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's not shown he can do that. He hasn't shown that he's going to cut hard to the basket or move without the ball. His shooting obviously is not where it needs to be. So that's what makes it challenging. And you want the ball in Halliburton's hand, right? Like, you want him to be making decisions. You look at his numbers lately, they've been spectacular. Like, he's nearing double digits in assists. He's scoring just under 20 points a game during this stretch. So he's done some great things. I just don't know if it meshes together. Like, Fox would have to, he's got to learn a different skill set, right? Like, that's how I look at it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I guess my confidence meter is lower than I thought now that you asked that question, because I anytime anyone asks me like, can they play together, it's like, yeah, of course they can. They're two good players. Like, you figure it out, right? But when you really dive deep into, well, there is no one else really with them. Like, we're not going to play in fantasy land and be like, well, could they play together if Ben Simmons was there too with them, or Pascal Siakam? No, we're not going to play that game. So if you look at it just them two, I worry, like, is De'Aaron Fox going to completely change his role as a player and become a willing cutter and just somehow come off, curl off screens into the paint, and he uses his speed as his main ability. I don't know. So yeah, my confidence level is now very low. Thank you for pointing this out.
And real quick, Dave, I just want to add to that. One of the things that frustrates me or makes my confidence low is there's two things they don't do particularly well. Defend, which is something I don't think will change. They maybe get better as team defenders and understand the team dynamic of defending better, but one-on-one, I just don't think it's good enough consistently. And this one, the second one, nobody understands. No, De'Aaron Fox specifically as being, quote unquote, the fastest guy in the league. They don't run no more. He doesn't run. Yeah. And if everything that they do, I guess this is where it comes from. If everything they do on the offensive end has to come from the half court, I can tell you it's not going to work. Mm. And right now they don't embrace being in the open floor enough together to do.
In fact, I feel like they've been faster when Fox isn't playing.
There you go.
Which is crazy to me, right? Like, I mean, you think about that a few years ago in that Jaeger year we always reference. I mean, there was zero doubt what the Kings were trying to do. Right?
Greatest year in the history of Kings basketball, right?
Oh
there.
Man, I'll never
39 wins,
39 win season, epic. But like you knew, like that's the style in which they were going to play, right? They were going to push it, even off makes. It didn't matter. But this year, it's not consistent at all. I feel like it's been more consistent when Mitchell and Halliburton have been in there pushing the tempo.
Mm.
Man, I can't lie. These just sound like a lot of reasons to consider making a move here, and not necessarily within the next 9 days, but perhaps in the upcoming months. By the way, I meant to say this at the start, and again, we were thrown for a loop a little bit in the last conversation with the Brian Flores news breaking. But shout out to you guys. We're already mailing it in. We're ready for the season to be over. There are 30 more night chats ahead. You guys willingly enter the Deuce and Mo podcast studios. They lost by 60. Mm-hmm. Night chat was popping. They lose the next night by 30. There's Deuce and Mo ready to do the night chat. So big ups to you, because we get an evening to. All right, let's digest this. We'll walk away a little bit. Let's regroup. All good. Get our thoughts together for 12. You guys, hour after the game, you're ready to rock. Hour and a half, you're ready to go.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm ready, but yeah, we do it. We do. I mean, like even on Sunday, when watching the championship games, and you see some of the reactions later in the night of the Bengals fans in their living room. Oh. Like these guys that you can tell have been rooting for the Bengals for a long time, and the pure joy and happiness that they have in that moment, seeing their team just get to the Super Bowl. All I could think about in those moments, I was so jealous because, like, imagine if the Kings just got to like the playoffs and had a fun year. That's like the joy that Sacramento would feel with like the 8 seed if they were like above 500. Right. And that it pains me to see visuals like that. And yeah, I know. Trust me. I feel a lot about the next 30 games, and each day that goes by, I'm like, can there be some sort of trade to get an injection of something different? Because this Kings season has just been, to me, the lost season. It just doesn't feel like it's at this point. It's like it's pretty much the same every night, right? Like they have a quarter where you're like, oh, except last night they didn't really even have a quarter. No. Then maybe they have a quarter where it's like, hey, good quarter here. They're playing well. And then there's like epic collapses. There's just not showing up. There's not caring. And that's my biggest disappointment, I think, this year, besides like what we talked about with Fox. But it's just like the lack of like fire at all, and I'm not saying it needs to come from every single person on the team, but God, I mean, if we were doing bad shows all the time, like me and Morton have a bad like segment sometimes. We'll after the show, we're talking about it. We're frustrated. Sometimes we do it during night chat. We get frustrated with each other.
We can relate to that.
Yes, because we all care.
I just want to see that. I just want to see like, hey, buddy, why are you taking that shot? Like, you're not getting the ball for the next 4 minutes. We're not passing you the ball, even if you're on the court. Like, that's not happening. Robert Woodard, when you come in late in the game last night and you jack up a three early in the shot clock, when that's not your shot, we're pulling you aside and going, what are you doing? Like, that type of accountability. We talk so much, the coaching staff's really got to do it. No, you got players that want it. You got players that want to get after it and hold each other accountable too.
Yeah, and you guys, sometimes I look at these night chats when we come in. Like you look after that Bucks game or after that Philly game, you actually got to talk about certain plays because there was competitive basketball happening before your eyes. But the other games, you're just talking about big picture. You're not trying to complain about every single thing that's going on, because then that's where I think we would honestly have to use any Deuce Mo podcast money that we were receiving on therapy, because it would be so mentally draining. So again, it's been a wild ride doing these night chats after every single game with a team that literally gives you zero passion or love or respect for the game some nights. And it's just embarrassing at times. And I think that's just not in any of our blood. Like us four especially, like we like to grind. We like to work hard, play hard, do all of that. But I'm surprised that we're talking about an entire team of NBA players where we have to question their love for the game, their effort, night in and night out. It's just bizarre.
And I don't think this team is like, oh my God, supremely talented. They shouldn't be like this bad, right? Like this bad. I mean, I just don't see, especially in a year where you look at the West right now. I mean, the Kings have lost 7 in a row and 12 of 14, and they're still 3.5 out of the play-in. I hate the play-in now. I wish the play-in didn't exist, because it just gives you that false hope. I mean, what?
Yeah.
Look at the West of playing. The Blazers are like 9-10 games below 500. They're the 10th spot. How's that good for the league? I get people like, oh, you want teams to remain competitive, but it's like this false hope, and you just don't want it. If it wasn't there, we wouldn't be talking about the playoffs right now. But because it's right there, there's this fear of mine that's like, hey, time for win now mode. Let's just get in the play-in. No, please, no. Well, if you're making a move, it's got to be, forget this year. It's about next year. It's about building something sustainable. I don't think anyone in Sacramento would get fired up if, hey, the Kings won 28 games and they were in the play-in. Like, that's just not going to do it.
The wintry shake at Burger Patch, by the way, makes for great therapy.
Thank you.
I'm two at a time with the wintry shakes.
Oh my God, I'm so glad you like those that much.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
KK, I'll bring you one, Casey. I got you, buddy. Don't worry about it. They're legit. They're legit.
You'll love it. It'll make you feel better.
In your opinion,
it tastes like winning.
That's right. It tastes like winning. That's what Burger Patch tastes like. It
definitely needs
winning.
Yeah, I need all of that, as the great philosopher Cameron Giles once said.
Indeed. Will this team ever be good? Are we gonna be like, well, for you guys, it's a little bit longer than it is for me and Kenny, but 45-year-old Deuce and Mo, if the Kings just make this one move at the trade deadline, we could be talking about 41 wins next year.
I feel like the only thing, and this has nothing to do with Sacramento, so this is just me pulling examples from other spots. I mean, the only thing that gives me a little hope is like, man, Phoenix was such a joke a couple of years ago, and they turned it around fast. Cleveland, like, even if you liked the Cavs offseason last year, I don't think anyone's like, hey, they're going to be near the top. They're going to be in the mix in the Eastern Conference. Like, no one thought that, even if you were kind of, positive about their outlook. And then I just go, well, the Warriors missed 17 of 18 one time. It can't be bad forever. That's all I have at this point. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know what to say. It seems like you can't be bad forever, but like Sacramento has challenged the thinking a little bit as they approach 16 straight seasons of not making the playoffs. I mean,
the Cleveland Browns made the playoffs.
That's a 22 year, isn't it?
20.
What's that? 21.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. 22, right?
It'll happen.
But
it'll happen.
I mean, it's also, you're in a league where over half the teams make it. So like at some point you would think you would just fall. You would have thought somewhere in the 16-year stretch that you just fall in 1 year. Even if you weren't good, you just end it at some point.
It's really, it's mind boggling to think that they are where they're at this year, because I know going into this season, people had some high expectations. I did not, but I definitely didn't have these low expectations, and it's low. And that's where I do question. I go, wait, so even with this roster, this team is still this bad and or worse. Like, how am I supposed to feel year after year after year? And I think the only way we're ever going to feel a certain like real hope, not false hope, is if this organization chooses an identity of how they want to build this squad into a winning squad. Because I think each year we're just like, oh, you got to trade this guy, make this week. No. The NBA has evolved into such a different animal now. And you have to have one or two, at least two all-stars on your team if you want to even be considered a championship team, right? You have to at least have that. So if you have one all-star or just even a star in your squad is when you can start talking about other things and winning. And this King squad does not have that, and they need to get that, whether it's through the draft or whether it's somehow trading assets and getting that.
Here's my question. Will they get to 30 wins this year?
No,
probably not.
Oh man,
which is crazy. Like
right now.
That's what I'm saying. So if you think about it, like I don't think anyone before, even if you did not think the Kings were going to be that great this year, like say you were on like the Vegas. I mean, the Vegas, I think it was 35 and a half,
12 and 18.
Yeah.
Right. You know, I don't do math. 12 and 18.
Yeah, no, 12
I think
and 18
is the record. The rest, and we pretty much have the next two taken care of, right? We got the Brooklyn game and the Golden State game.
You still have the Bulls twice. I still think you've got the Heat. You've got the Suns twice. You got the Warriors. Yeah. So this is a tough finish. And by the way, you don't have many home games left. I think there's 13 home games left.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, Casey. They might. Wait a second. The Kings might have won more games last year in a 72-game season than they will this year in an 82-game season.
That's tragic.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow.
You guys know. Oh, go on, Kenny.
To answer Damien's question, it'll happen. They'll win, on a playoff level at some point. I don't know when it's going to be. We may have to reset the clock here with this whole thing again. If they want to, blow this up and go, directly through the draft, may take some more time, but it'll happen.
Tyrese and Jabari Smith next year.
All right, there we go.
I said Paulo. I said Paulo.
I just like the Jabari Smith angle just because his dad played here.
Jabari Smith is dope. Like that boy can go. I just don't think they're gonna be the number one pick.
Hey, they're gonna have a chance, man. If they keep this up, they got the 5th worst record in the league. I mean,
God. Then they need to rig. They need to rig it and give the Kings the number one pick. End of story.
We're more than you.
Weighted lottery balls. How do you the ghost of David Stern takes over and
and then the Kings draft another point guard.
Oh my God.
They get Ty Washington with the number one pick in the draft.
Oh my God.
What do you think happens?
Zeke with the number one pick in the draft.
I don't think they're going to get that reference.
I
don't think they're going to get that reference.
We made a problem to them, though.
There's probably a lot of people who don't get the Zeke reference, but it's very, very funny. There's a character on a show called Ghost Power, and he's the dumbest basketball player that ever existed. And he got a draft promise from the Sacramento Kings. He's also like 40, but he thinks he's 20. Like he is a bona fide idiot. He got a draft promise this week from the Sacramento Kings. So it was very funny.
That's great.
So for us, that was like the SNL skit. For other people, like the SNL skit, thought that was great. We thought the power promise was okay. That's funny.
Yeah.
Zeke is a moron, and like the Kings will take him.
Kings, the SNL skit for us.
Kings will definitely take him.
That's funny.
Do you think the team? We only get to talk to you guys once a month now. Do Do you think the team looks different the next time we talk? Like really, really different?
Damien, it bet. I remember you asked us before the draft, and we're like, yeah, I mean, for sure. I mean, completely. So I sure hope so.
I was told this front office was being really aggressive in all caps. That's what I was told, but oh yeah, that's really true.
We were just waiting for them to pull the trigger.
Yeah, I mean, it better look different next time we talk. I mean, I
can't wait today for Buddy Hield to be announced on February 11th.
Well, like in the starting lineup for the Kings, or you mean in a trade?
Yeah, I still think Buddy's going to be here on. I've given up. Like it's just Buddy is going to be here forever. Like his jersey's going up. Like he's going to be here forever. They're never trading.
His jersey's
it's like Kenny Thomas back in the day. Remember the King? Like Kenny Thomas was. It seemed like
we
Kenny
still
was
can't get rid of Kenny Thomas. He's
still
here.
He's still here. He's still here.
He's still here sweating more than he did when he was a player.
Buddy Hield on your Kings pregame show. Coming soon.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I was looking.
Join Mo and Buddy after the show to talk more about this Kings loss.
Please, no, I quit.
I was looking back at last trade deadline because I'm like, yeah, when did the trades start moving, man? There were like 22 trades during the last trade period, right? During the season up until the trade deadline. 16 of those trades were on deadline day.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, 16 of the 22. And some of those happened the week of too, but like 16 of them happened that day.
What was the biggest trade though last year? Do you recall?
I mean, who could forget the big Bielitsa for Mo Harkless trade?
Huge.
But like league wide. Like
I know.
League wide.
I don't remember.
Deuce is making a joke, and I didn't even buy it.
Okay, you had the Aaron Gordon. Aaron Gordon to Denver. Oladipo moved to Miami. You had Fournier going to the Celtics.
And remember, this was when we were waiting for Kyle
Kings
Lowry.
Wait a minute. Evan Fournier was traded to the Celtics last year.
In fairness to the NBA, the biggest deal happened weeks before the deadline. The Harden deal.
Okay, so that's what I was getting at.
Yeah, the biggest one happened January 14th.
The DeMarcus Cousins deal happened weeks before the trade deadline, and it feels like the big deals, they don't often go up till the deadline. Like there's normally, like Ben Simmons isn't being traded. I don't think Domantas Sabonis is being traded. I would love for Julius Randle to be traded. I don't think he is either. I think the moves that you're going to get are the Nemanja Bjelica, Evan Fournier, those, and now the Aaron Gordon deal was a big deal. Obviously, Denver, signed him to an extension. That's a big deal. I don't mean to diminish that, but I think we're going to get a lot of those, those Evan Fournier type deals.
And I think that's fine. That's fine. Like obviously, I want a bigger deal, but I'm with you, Damien. I don't think those deals are happening mid-season. This year, I think those are draft day, summer type deals when you talk about, potential all-stars or something like that. But if you do little things like trade a Harrison Barnes or Buddy Hield, Marvin Bagley, Rashawn Holmes to kind of set that part of your roster and then maybe look to make the big deal in the summer, I'm cool with that right now. I'm good.
And there's going to be teams like you look at the Utah Jazz. They just lose Joe Ingles, what are they wanting to do this year? I know so many things are going on there. And then we were talking about this last night, even with the Memphis Grizzlies. You look how good they've done without Dylan Brooks. Could Dylan Brooks be maybe that piece that they trade away to try and get ahead of the Golden State Warriors and the Suns? Who knows? Like those are the ones that I'm going to be looking out for. And hopefully if those tweaks can come along for some of these guys, it's like, do you want Harrison Barnes or Buddy for some picks? Like where can this possibly go? I think those are the people and teams that you need to be looking at.
Did you guys, before we let you go here real quick, did you happen to read Ramona Shelburne's piece this morning on Ben Simmons?
I was definitely a quick read. I kind of skimmed it pretty fast, but yes, I got most of it.
Did you have a reaction to it?
I mean, I just thought the one line that made me laugh was that Simmons was not happy about Embiid criticizing him and Simmons was like, well, I didn't criticize him after he wasn't good against the Raptors in 2019, which is kind of funny because, like, well, you kind of are now. I mean, this whole situation's a mess. I mean, they need to trade him. And so my reaction is just, it's just been a really crappy situation for both sides. And I just don't think Morey is prepared to move on at this point. I think he is just hell bent on making sure to get maximum value. And I think he's still eyeing James Harden.
And, you know, Stephen A. Smith was talking the other day about maybe Daryl Morey's hands being tied by the front office and
the ownership,
or the ownership. And that's why, you know, another reason why, like, hey, he's not just pulling the trigger and trading him away, because Daryl Morey loves shooters. So it's not like he loves Ben Simmons anyway. So who knows if that's really what's going on behind the scenes.
What's your takeaway from?
I felt bad for him. I know that'll catch heat. I just felt bad for him. Like,
no, it shouldn't catch heat, Damian. And we had this discussion on our night chat a few, I don't know, like a week ago, about the mental health aspect that people want to just like push aside, like it's not a thing, and they think he's just making it up. I just think that's unfair to say about a guy.
Yeah. You don't get to decide that. Even one, and I was like, go educate yourself. And then one guy's like, you can't tell people to go educate themselves if they're just suspicious. And it's like, no, yes, like that's the issue there. You are questioning someone that is telling you something about themselves, is being transparent and open about it, and you are saying that it's a lie and or an excuse. And we do this in society with so many victims, so many different things, that it's just absolutely ridiculous that we're doing this with Ben Simmons now in 2022.
Being criticized by like 10 people on Twitter sucks. Being criticized by like 1 million people and talking heads on every major sports network, like, that's hard. Like, and I know it comes with the territory and the 130 million. Like, I get that. It's just tough. And that, like, as I was reading Ramona's article, I was like, man, she got a little baby face sympathy from me for Ben Simmons. That's Deuce and Mo, host of the Deuce and Mo podcast. You could catch them both, I'm sure, pre and post and halftime tomorrow for Brooklyn and Golden State as well. Thank you guys as always for being with us.